Ladies and gents, welcome to Next Level Radio. I am your host, Colby Wortman, and our mission is to tackle the biggest questions in strength and conditioning, business, investing, and everything in between. We bring to you the best people in every sector so that you, the listener, can benefit and learn from the best in the biz. Whether that is S&C or business, you can rest assured you're getting the best knowledge available. Having trained athletes for many, many years, we have tried every treadmill known to man. You name it, we've tried it. With these treadmills, there's always been a disconnect, something missing for our athletic performance, something that just does not correlate to athletic success on the field until we tried our TrueForm runners. TrueForm for over 10 years has been elevating the performance of pro athletes, college athletes, recreational runners, and everyday athletes alike. You can check out TrueForm treadmills at trueformrunner.com, and we thank TrueForm for being an exclusive sponsor of Next Level Radio. All right, it's time we all grow up a little bit. Ditch the pre-workout. It's not 2007 anymore, and it's nothing like Jacked 3D. Ditch the shaker. You're not 4 years old, and you don't need a bottle anymore. And get yourself the best dippable pre-workout on the market. Each pouch is patriotically packed with 300 milligrams of caffeine and vitamins because shaker bottles suck. Send It Sups is the on-the-go solution for athletes, LEOs, firefighters, door kickers, and everybody in between. Head over to senditsups.com to get the best dippable pre-workout on the market, and we thank Send It Sups for being a sponsor of Next Level Radio. Next Level Radio continues to grow because of our listeners and our sponsors. Today we present to you Fat Fish Brewing, the official beer of Next Level Radio. Whether you're looking for a night out with family or smashing the best craft beers in the area, you will find it all at Fat Fish Brewing. Check out Fat Fish on the Large Street in Dickinson, or check them out on their website at fatfishbrewing.com. Life has an amazing way of coming full circle and bringing to you the people that you need in your life at that time. As a young whippersnapper, 4 monsters deep, just excited to tackle the day, I'm headed to my first strength and conditioning conference, and I hear about a company called Team Builder. Multiple coaches with experience with Team Builder and other platforms said the exact same thing. They said that you can get very similar products across different platforms. However, the thing that truly sets aside Team Builder and puts their product above anybody else's is their true and genuine customer service. As a customer for many years, both at the university setting and the private facility, I can tell you, Team Builder's customer service is absolutely second to none. Late night emails, programming issues, emergencies on my end are all resolved very, very quickly. So join the thousands of universities and private facilities that use Team Builder to elevate their businesses by going to teambuilder.com, click Start My Free Trial, and use code NLT at checkout. Our next sponsor, Nutridyne, a medical supplement company aimed at enhancing performance and addressing the underlying issues of disease. You will be hard-pressed to find the quality that you'll find at Nutridyne. Listeners of this podcast get 20% off all supplements. Just go to @coach_Wortman and click the Nutridyne link in our bio. Keep up with us on Instagram @coach_Wortman, on our website, nl-training.com, or keep up with us on the next episode of Next Level Radio. Now sit back, relax, and take in the mind-melting knowledge of this episode. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 119 of Next Level Radio, and we have a very special guest today, something that I've really wanted to do for a long time, and it's been a long time coming, and I'm glad it worked out that we got to do this. But somebody very special to me in what I've done in football, in my career, in everything. We have Coach Pete Stanton here today, and we'll get into the kind of the nitty gritty, but very big coaching pedigree, teaching, and everything that you've done. So I'll have you kind of introduce yourself just real quick, and we'll go from there, Coach.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And my name is Pete Stanton. I've been at Dickinson State now this is already going on 24 years here. Originally from Baker, Montana, and actually was fortunate enough to play here a way long time ago now at Dickinson State in the late 80s for Coach Bijou, and went out to Montana for 11 years teaching and coaching out in eastern Montana, and then when I had an opportunity in 2000 to come back as a coach and teacher here, it was a great opportunity. It was one of the only places that I probably would have came back to, and it was here, and that's how it all fell into place.
And I couldn't believe just how time flies, and you probably know just better than I, but when I was looking up just a couple statistics and dates, because I'm terrible with dates, it was my sophomore year that you took over after Coach B, 2013. That's already been, you're the 15th head coach, and we've already been 10 years in, and time just flies like crazy, especially from the team that we were to where you guys have gone now.
Yeah, it sure has. It sure has been gone very quickly. In fact, when Rod Kleinsman was interviewing me this year at the beginning of the year, he said the same thing. He's like, "It's already been 10 years. No way."
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And from where we were at, 9-time is what we just won, correct? Our 9th year?
Correct,
yep,
yes.
Yep. And, we've won it every single time the North Star has been a thing, correct?
Yes. That's actually the first year in 2014, we lost to Valley City twice that year. We remember we fumbled the ball at about the 1-inch line going in to take the lead towards the end, and then they kicked off a long run into the wind and beat us. It's amazing how you can remember those things.
Yep.
You don't remember as much sometimes when you win, but
they're scars.
Remember that one, but that was the last time. It was in 2014, and that time period was I still think a lot about that time period, that, the teams that you were on and those guys that really made that transition. It was tough times for 2 or 3 years there.
Yes.
We just weren't a very good football team. And I tell our team that all the time. I said, you guys were the ones in that team time period from 13, 14, 15 that really helped pave the way for the players we have now.
Yeah. It's crazy to think about. My first year, winning one game. Everybody beats Jamestown, so we beat Jamestown. So we got it done there, and then I still remember we were in Weenbergen. We all had this feeling that it was kind of Coach B's time to go into the sunset, really. And I still remember sitting in the front row. We're in Weenbergen Class A. We take the slider out. We're in A and B together there, and he announces that he's stepping down, and you were going to be taking over the helm there. And it was bittersweet to one extent, but also I'm very, very grateful that I got to even just be coached by him, and as you too as an assistant. How was that? Because from my standpoint, we can go down the years. 2013, 1-10. 2014, 7-4. 2015, 8-3, 7-3, 9-2, 9-3, 8-3, 9-1, 8-3, 8-3, 10-2. So we go down that list, but that 1-10 year was that pivot point. Like, what was your big emphasis year one to turn that around? Because it's not just players, it's culture, it's everything.
Yeah, it was a little bit everything, and then of course at the same time we switched conferences too, but even people don't remember. In 2011, before we went into the Frontier, we had a tough year that year too. Yep. And I think it was more just with the mindset of the players. We had a lot of players that really wanted to do well, but we're just missing a lot of the pieces. We're missing a lot of the pieces. So I think it was just really at that point, starting over, with just different things, whether it was things in the weight room, whether it was things in the recruiting part of it, whether it was things in the accountability with all the players and all that. I think that was just a big piece, and it wasn't easy for 3 or 4 years, regarding that too.
Yeah, well, it was a complete overhaul. You stepping up, you had that experience under Coach B, and I'll get to that. I have a couple questions about that, but completely new offense. We still had Arlen, and to this day, he's been one of our more influential coaches, and it was a complete overhaul on the offensive side of the ball. I remember we were playing Rocky at home in 2013, and they were calling out our plays before we ran them, and very successfully every single time. Kayla Ray, dive right, and he hands the ball off to Myron Moore. And it was a different time, and this is maybe it's just where I was grew up and everything, but I remember this distinctively, and I don't think I've ever told you. After that 1-10 year, a lot of not just JUCOs, other people too. We win one game, we beat Jamestown, and I had multiple people come up like, "Hey, we're going to transfer. Like, are you thinking about it? Like, are you doing it?" It was a thought that never even crossed my mind. I don't know if it's just how I grew up. Like, we just finished this out. But it was a couple guys that and I don't even remember who it was, but those are the people that we don't need, And like me, Drew Johnson, as freshmen, it was just something like, we got it next year. And it was really telling to the culture that we saw that was coming. But it was a complete overhaul. I mean, I still have framed back there the old jerseys. Just a little tiny Hawk logo right in the front. It was big tear in the side there. But when you were the assistant coach to Coach B, what were some of he was a man full of knowledge. What were some of those big takeaways that you still implement today from him?
Oh, just, obviously the consistency that he had, you mentioned offensively, that's what he was going to do. He wasn't going to change when he retired. He said, "Yeah, we ran a lot of shotgun. We ran it on fourth down every play. We did that." But his consistency over the years, and I think the way that he treated people, and the way that he still connected with not only his current players, with his former players, and I think those were all big things. And a very knowledgeable coach, and it's just you don't go 30 years in a row with a winning season and that be a mistake. I mean, it was just that part of it. He's a person I played for, and just the guys that played for him just had the ultimate respect for him.
Yeah, everybody did. Everybody has very high regards for him, and then you see him in town. I just saw him at El Som the other day, and got to see my son. And he sat at our table. He's just he's a wholehearted guy. Yes. It was just I think, and you could speak to this better than I, but it was a different form of football.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, it was two back, and we were just going to be physical up front, and we're going to run trap and counter, and toss was kind of a risk if we threw it, And I heard it many a times on the sidelines. We're going to run speed option or load option or bootleg until the quarterback, but don't pitch it or don't throw it. Yep. Just run the ball, and that's the, he was also the master of like setting teams up. He was okay. When we had those really good teams, when, Jay Schillinger and Kylan Clauser and those guys were playing in the early 2000s, Adam Eckert, and I could go on and on, Nick Walker, but, he's master of, it's okay that if we took 3 or 4 or 5 losses on offense, running this play, because we were going to set up and then we were going to hit a big play in the second half, and it almost always happened.
Mm-hmm. And at that point, I think the key play, you had a line that could dominate anybody in the conference at that point. You had the dogs up front and kind of led the way with a 2-back set, and we just went. That's what he built his bread and butter off of. And me being a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed little senior, I had no idea of anything different. It was just 2-back set, and we just go. And so it was really cool to see this whole transition from 2013 to 1-10, and then we had a 7-4 season. And we really turned it around, and it was really cool to see not only the culture change, but the coaching change, the football change, and everything in between. Going from 2013 into 14 and the rest of the years, me from the outside in, and I had a conversation with many other people, and your name comes up. Chad Reneker, he owns most real estate in town with Chad Glauser. This just must be a Chad thing. Mm-hmm. He talked about he loves renting out to DSU football players because of that culture and the people that they are. So talk to that a little bit. Like, what is it, a recruiting thing, and then you build that culture in? How has that changed over the years?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the expectations that we have for our guys, and number one, just to be good people. We're going to have guys from different backgrounds and different family makeups and whatever it is, but we're going to come together and we're going to be a family. And I think that's part of it. And then your expectations are to be good people. Not everybody's going to be perfect off the field. Not everybody's going to be perfect on the field, but we're going to handle it well on the field, and we're going to handle it well off the field. And if you don't do the right things, and you probably remember, there's that first couple of years we had to remove guys from the team. It wasn't they weren't. I don't. Nobody said they were a bad person. They weren't a bad person. But I think it's that it just they have to be accountable and have to be in on the team aspect of it. And the big thing on that is just understanding everybody has a different past. Everybody has a different background, and it's not easy to get there. Everybody kind of has a crooked path. Some have straighter paths than the others, but they eventually get there. And you can't assume that somebody has the same past as somebody else, and so we have to get them there. But at the same point, be accountable to the team and understand that's a part of the team. And some guys need the team more than the team needs them. But that's important too, you know. And we have maybe guys that weren't as good at football players, but helped pull along maybe some guys that were better football players that needed to be more accountable. And I think that's the key, and really the key that's kind of helped us continue to be successful is that accountability.
Yeah, you have a lot of those guys. I can remember a ton of them. Just guys that would make an impact when they were there, but their impact was in the locker room. Their impact was keeping kids accountable, being on meetings like, hey, if you're 5 minutes late, that's not how we do things around here. And I think for looking from the outside in my experience with you, it was just this expectation of excellence. Like, we're not expecting perfect, but we're going to strive for it. And if you're 5 minutes late, we don't do that. It's been something that I've carried over into my life and my business and everything. Like, I always tell people, college football made me a morning person. It's just an expectation of delivering your best, even if it isn't the best that day.
Yeah,
know?
No question. And we do that now. And, of course, you were a part of our lifting, regime and did a great job with our guys. And you're doing the same here now. But our guys are, people don't realize sometimes, during the season, they're up at 5:30 in the morning. And I think early on, maybe when you were there, some of the guys it wasn't as easy. We had guys that were missing lifting or not, or late for lifting or whatever the case may be, and that's that accountability thing. Now we just don't have. That's the expectation. Our leadership with our players. It's like we have very, very, very few issues with that. They're just there and they're up at 5:30 in the morning. They're doing their things and they're very accountable.
Yep. It was. Early on, I could see that culture switch, but then we had like Haroff and we had Wiggert and we had these guys that were, as Drew and I were these freshmen, we would look up to them and they set that standard, and it's just really progressed all the way through. You guys have now people like Zuroff and all these people that are very accountable and really bring those players along, but they also are impact players on the field. It's really cool to see because it wasn't always like that, and that's kudos to you, kudos to all the coaching staff. It's been really remarkable to see, and as of this year, a very, very successful year. We were able to do a lot of good things. Had a big win at Tech. That's always good. I don't know if you ever know this, but I'm hoping one day they switch the picture. I've never told you this, I don't think, but when you go, what would be their Weinbergen building where we get dressed? When we played there our freshman year, it was a regular season game when we were in the Frontier. I bit on play action, and they had a tight end seam, and I was right there, but he dumped it over the top of me. Well, they still have a picture of me getting that ball caught over me plastered on their window still, the old jerseys. So I had a couple guys that were playing this year there, and they all took pictures and were sending it to me.
I did not know that.
It's still there.
That's really neat. And, you think about just Montana Tech, and all you have to really do is, to look at kind of the transformation is that team. As you mentioned, we played them those 2 years in the Frontier, and it was not good. It was we were overwhelmed in many ways. And then in 2015, when we got back into the playoffs, we played them again, and it was a little better, but it was still pretty rough. And I think really 2016 was the year, even though the teams before that had really started paving the way, that we really started to see that transformation of our guys in our program. So we go out to Montana Tech and it was 28-21 game. We rushed for over 300 yards. And early in the year we played Western. We'd had some guys hurt in that game, and we had a couple of guys that weren't certified yet with, Noe and some of those guys. Yep. And they came on later. And I think that year was really the year, even though 15 we'd won the conference, and 14 we had started to win a few games, and like you said, 7-4. I think that was 16 was the year that things started to really show on the field.
Yeah, and I think just showing up to Butte or any of those other schools, just the confidence. because we can beat ourselves. And I've been to games where it's not the coaching plan, it's not anything. Us and the players, we beat ourselves by the time we walk out.
Yeah, you know? and that's and then it accumulated this year, going out there and winning that game out there against a team that beat a Division II team on the road, and we. And I know a lot of people felt we shouldn't have been on the road, and that's that just it is what it is. I guess really want to credit our guys again that we just went on the road and they didn't flinch and win and beat a really good team on the road and in a good conference.
Who did Tech beat? D2? Black
Hills? They beat Central Washington, who actually won 2 playoff games. Central Washington beat a team in Colorado, and then they also beat Bemidji State in the playoffs. Really? And Montana Tech beat them on the road in Central Washington this year.
Wow, that's a huge win. Thinking back, and it could be multiple, from 2013 to 2023 when you were the head coach. Thinking back in those early times, what was who do you think had the most potential out of those teams? And it could be 2023s too, or the Jay Liggins years, or the thinking back about that, and it could be a couple. But what was special about that team? Whatever you pick.
Boy, there was a lot of really good teams, through there. And going back to the 14 team, I think the big thing with that team is when you said we went 7-4 that year. If you remember the first couple of games, we got blown out.
Yeah.
And then we go up to Waldorf, a team that we were better than, and I still remember that game. And we turn it over and we drop punts and we do. And I took Coach Schillinger, and it's like, I don't think this is meant to be. And then we made some plays at the end of the game and won that game. And then we won. Like, the key that year is we won 3 or 4 close games.
Yep.
And beat Dakota State in overtime, and it really kind of helped the confidence level. But I go back to the 16 team. That team was a really good team that year, and we had 3 good running backs on that team, and that were all could have started for anyone else. That was the first time really we thought on both sides of the ball, on the offensive and defensive line, and up front, our linebacking core, and that we had hey, we can hang with teams and do that.
Was that the Dakota Bowl year too?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. And the 17 team was a very good team as well. The problem there was we went up to play Southern Oregon, who was so good, and that was meeting some really good teams in the playoffs there. And then of course the 18 team was a special team, and that's what you mentioned with Jay and Kane and those guys, and of course Hayden was at quarterback and Tiger, and that crew. We lose a heartbreaker in the quarterfinals at Kansas Wesley, and they score with about 30 seconds left to beat us in that game. We have a 2-score lead there. Otherwise, we're in the national semifinals in that year. So yeah,
that's kind of where I was leaning back towards, was the transition year of 2016 and that 2018 really special years.
Correct, and we've had very solid teams, until then, or since then, excuse me, some. Part of it is that first round matching up with the either Morningside or Northwestern, and and we are 2-3 against Northwestern too. People forget that a little bit, but we but the last 3 or 4 years Northwestern's really come on, and they got a great team and great coach and program. But I think just that matchup part of it too has been, when you go back to 20 years ago, we used to bid on those playoffs, and really high bid would have that. It would get home games, and Dickinson State would get home games, and now it's just going to be based upon rankings and things like that. So a lot of times, it's just as you get into the playoffs and things, it's just going to be about matchups. But going back to what you said, and I think in accumulating with this year, I think we had a team that when you walked off the field, even in our loss in the last game, and talking to our coaches, like we belonged in that field, and we are not that far away and playing, against very good teams at the national level.
Yes. One of the years, I don't remember what year it was that I was there, we beat Northwestern once.
Yes.
I think it was at home, if I remember right. I don't. It's gone past me, but it was just. Was it 16?
16. We beat them at home.
Yep. And that was. I mean, it was a big confidence boost, and we really seen it. But this year, watching the Butte game was really cool. I was actually at my Airbnb in Lead, and I pulled it up, and it was just really cool to see Zuroff come into his own. But that's because of the offensive line, and I mean, it didn't feel like he had over 250 because he was just chipping away every single time. And talk about him a little bit. I mean, he's not that he wasn't a great athlete last year and when he was at NDSU, but Zuroff this year compared to last year is a different person.
Well, and it's, we know how good he is and he was, and this year was different as well just because it was now his turn.
Yeah.
We had two really good running backs the last couple of years, Riley Linder and Alec Lovegren. Riley ends up being the MVP of the conference, but there's no question that Braden could have been our starter last year. And then this year we knew he was going to get the majority of the carries, and obviously he's a guy that we had recruited out of high school and really wanted to get out of high school. He went to NDSU, he came back over, and obviously we knew what he was capable of, and he delivered this year.
Yes, he did.
Not only is what he does on the field, but he's one of our captains. He's one of our, you talk about leadership, you talk about accountability. He's just all of that, and he's as good a person as you could be around, and tough, and we know that we could have maybe even had him rush for 2,000 yards this year, where there's a lot of games that he didn't get a carry maybe in the second half this year. But we wanted to keep him fresh. And I thought you saw the result then in the Montana Tech game where we're, and Darian's our backup running back is a very good player. But about halfway through the second quarter, I told our coaches we are just going to ride Braden the rest of this game. And he delivered like we thought he would.
Yes. And, Looking a little bit just in the short future, you have Jamestown that pretty much saves the North Star for another year. Mm-hmm. They come back and looking from the outside in, and you were in the weeds, so you know more than I do. But maybe it's just because we're biased and we're Bluehawks for life. But maybe losing a little bit of credibility from Kansas City and just putting us on the road. But it's kudos to you guys. Like, it comes down to, we just have to beat who's in front of us. But it was a little bit of a weird time throwing us on the road. And if you want to make it right, put us at 17, and it was a weird thing, but it's kudos to you guys. You just had to show up and beat, and you've always instilled that in us. Like, it doesn't matter what the refs do. We shouldn't leave it to them. We shouldn't leave it to Kansas City, the headquarters of the NEI. We just beat who's in front of us, and so that was really cool to see. Going back to the Frontier, it's very deep roots for you. It's very deep roots for your family, your recruiting, and everything. Speak to kind of what you see as we go. I don't want to look past this season, but going back on the Frontier and the feelings of that.
Yeah, I think we're ready to do that. And it comes down to with Jamestown, just being in for the 1 year. We can't have a conference that has 4 football teams in it, and we knew that. And the other end of it, we don't want to be independent that way. And as you said, we know with the Wyoming athletes we have on our team, with the Montana athletes that we have on our team, those 2 states alone, you're getting close to 70 student athletes there. So the recruiting map and the recruiting landscape is pretty similar for us and the Frontier schools. So that as we look forward to that. To be honest, I wouldn't have minded going in next year with the heavy senior class that we have. We're heavy seniors next year, and we know the task too. There's some great teams there, and all the way across the board. You look at Montana Tech had battles with Carroll, and Montana Tech beat College of Idaho at home, who was in the the semifinals and almost got to the finals. So we know it's a good league, but I think that's just going to help us as a program, going into that league to be able to, to step up and play week in, week out, really good teams. And at the same point of it, we're sure hoping that a couple of the North Dakota teams and teams in our conference, will look to come in as well. And I think there's a really opportunity to have like an East-West type setup. So we're the 10th team now in football, and if 2 more schools to the east of us would come in, we could have a 6-team, where it was the east side and a couple of the Montana schools versus a couple of Montana schools and some of the West Coast schools, and I think you have a really great setup there too with an automatic qualifier and with the way east side and west side. So I think there's a great opportunity there too if we can get a couple more to come along. Yeah,
you would almost have to take 2 out of there, in east and west. It's really cool, and I think me having played in the Frontier, some of the hardest times I've ever been hit in my life, that was when Carroll they were still great. They still won a lot of good games from their run in the early 2000s. And I mean, some of those games, it was the sorest I've ever been in my life. But I think people are oblivious if they think that it's going to be anything like that. Not saying that we're going to run through this conference. Like, I think it's going to be so good for those kids. Every single week, we're not going to have an off week. You know, you're going to have a bye week somewhere, but you do not have an off week. Every week is going to be a battle.
Yeah, and it's the challenge, and that's what you want. It's you want to, I think it makes you better. It makes your team better. It helps you as a coach. It helps you as a player. You have to be able to do that. That being said, it's going to be a challenge, but that's what you want. You want your program to play those good teams and do that and step up and do what you need to do. Has there been talks, because from the outside in, I talked to a couple of people that are very attached to it. Dakota State has made rumors or talked of wanting to go D2. You have Jamestown that will be. Is there talks of anybody east even considering it? I think there are. I think everybody's looking at all their options. Valley City's looking at the same thing. And I think in a perfect world, if you talk to those teams that were in the DAC 10 previously, and if you're in a perfect world and said, hey, could we have a D2 conference with several of those DAC schools back, and Chadron State and whoever in Northern State, I think there would be a lot of people for that, including Dickinson State. But that's not a reality right now, and I think they're looking at the different options. And there's a lot of things that go into Division II as well. I mean,
academically,
you have to, it's administrative positions. Coach Fleury and I are both administrators at Dickinson State, and as coach as well. You wouldn't be able to do that in Division II. You have to find a couple different administrators. You have to have a compliance person and all that. So
that's budget stuff.
There's a lot more that goes into it that way too, that I think that people don't realize. But I think ideally, if that could ever happen, down the road, and I don't see that happening in the next 3 or 4 years. But if people are working toward that, that's definitely something that we'd be in favor of down the road.
And that's kind of where I was kind of thinking, if it's a 5 to 10 year or a 10 to 15 year kind of plan, that we could hopefully get an indoor facility. We really take those steps. I mean, I know the college has been taking, long-term trajectory steps. You got women's wrestling, you got the cheerleading team, talks of other women's and men's sports that would really solidify us as an opportunity to do that. And I think we have, better than I, but a lot of the support from Dickinson. And I've said it before, this community is different. It's elevated me to where I'm at. It's elevated the college. It's a different community.
No, it's an incredible community, and all you have to do is come to our homecoming game to see that.
That was awesome.
We have a football alumni reunion. That was just a small part of it, but you see about 250 former players come back, and you see that tailgate and our players walking through that tailgate, and you have people that I know from Montana that are big time football games, and they're like, well, they don't have this type of tailgate atmosphere, and the crowds that we had and the support that we have day in, day out. And it's the same thing on the road. It was pretty cool in Butte, Montana.
Yes, it was.
To look up in the stands and just see Bluehawk fans everywhere, and before the game, after the game, win, lose, or draw, they're supportive. So we're an incredible community. Our players understand that as well. I mean, from top to bottom, whether it's the high school and the community, and the things that so many people, including yourself, do for the people in the community. It's huge, and that's a cool thing. And for talking about people like you, that you give back so much. You're here. You went to the school here, and you're from Wyoming, but we have guys from California and guys from Alaska and guys from Hawaii that are here still and making a huge impact. But I think that also says a lot about the community of Dickinson, that you guys have stayed here, have been big contributors here, and we're fortunate that you have. But the support and the network, you feel at home. This is home for you, and that's a cool thing.
It really is. I've said it before, but it's just a different feel. There's very successful people that want other people's success in Dickinson, and they're willing to help you with that, and they're willing to give back. And there's just nothing like that in Worland. I mean, it's a small town, but it's not like that. And for people that weren't at the homecoming, I mean, it was not one of the first times, but it was standing room only. I mean, that new addition of the beer garden and all that has been one of the best things that you guys have ever done. And I got to see guys like Bryce Kilbeck and Robert and Drew that I haven't talked to and seen in a long time. And it's something that I'll cherish the rest of my life. It was super, super cool. And you just can't get anything like that anywhere else. No. D2, Division I, whatever it is, you've seen it all. It's a community that you'll never have like anywhere else.
No question, and it's all about like I said, all the groups that help get that to bring that together. The foundation and the touchdown club that we have is incredible. I mean, we have a stag before the football season starts down, and get together, and there's probably 50 people in the room, and they're raising an incredible amount of money for the football program. And then you see the same thing with softball with the crab feed, and go on and on and on. And
the Blue Chicks,
the support that people have is just so appreciated. So appreciated.
Yep. And now that I don't have, now my head's a little bit above water, having my 1-year-old, it was a big transition. I'd like to start getting back to the touchdown club meetings. I only got to one, and then we had our baby, and it was outrageous. But just the stuff that they do is crazy. I heard a story, and it hits close to home for every Blue Hawk. Our song, and I heard you talk about this, and kind of go back to that little bit story with Sam Johnson. Man, that was cool to hear.
Sam Johnson is from Edmonton, and he was a player on the teams that I played with, and it was a unique time at that time because the Canadian guys that would come in to play on our teams would play club ball for a few years. So they would play club ball, and then they would transition to college. So I was a senior, and 3 or 4 freshmen come in that are all older than I was. And so I'm a 22-year-old or 21-year-old or whatever it was, senior, and Sam Johnson comes in, and he's one of our running backs that year, and goes on to have a great career and part of any playoff games. But he starts a song afterwards. You say, hey, I have a song that we sang in club ball, and we're gonna do this after every win. And I won't go into the details of the song, but all the Blue Hawk players know it. And when I came back in 2000, he started that in 1987. I came back as a coach in 2000, and when we won our first game, I was like, wow, they're still singing that song. I said, Sam would be proud. So this has gone on for many years then. And when I became the head coach, then I would tell you guys or tell the other teams, like, this song started in 1987, and Sam Johnson started this. Well, Sam and I hadn't been as connected maybe as we should have. And then last year he came out to our alumni or the Touchdown Club golf tournament out in Mile City, and I said, they still sing that song, Sam? And he just had a tear in his eye. He was like, what?
Gives me goosebumps, dude.
And then he said, well, I'm going to come out, so I knew he was coming out for this alumni reunion. I said, Sam, if we win this game, you're gonna come down and sing the song. And he had more tears in his eyes, and he came down after we won the game, and there must have been 30 or 40 former players that came down with him, really from every era. Yeah. There was guys from the 70s down there, the 80s, the 90s, the guys that played the last 3 or 4 years. We had 4 or 5 recruits whose dads played at Dickinson State who were in the locker room. And he took his hat off, and I said, one of the players said, "Do you still remember the words?" And I don't want to repeat exactly what he said, but something to the effect, "Are you bleeping kidding me?" Mm-hmm. I remember the words, and he starts off, took his hat off, and had the best rendition of the song, and the players were chanting it back, and there were former players that had tears coming down their eyes, and it was really, to be honest, one of the coolest moments that I've had as a coach here, to have a locker room full of former players and singing that song and singing the tradition that the guys sing at the wedding, and have the guy who started it sing it here at Dickinson State.
I just did the math. 36 years. 36 years that's been going on from 87 till now. And when I was playing, I didn't know where that started, how it started. And it's a tradition that only the Hawks know. And it's something super special. Since the first day that you get to training camp and we get through training camp and we capstone it, you learn that. And it's like, it's something that you'll hold on to the rest of your life. And we did it at Dalton Reed's wedding, a bunch of different ones, and it was that when I heard that story, it gave me goosebumps. I mean, that's a really cool tradition, man. One of the last things, this is kind of an impromptu thing. I've told this story multiple times, and I give speeches on it. And so I want you to see this ripple effect that it can make. And so I've given speeches about like addictive business and addiction and all this stuff. And I tell people that this impact of a coach is more than anybody will ever know. And you don't know until you're in your seat 10, 20, 30 years down the road. And so when I had struggles with addiction in 2016 in that time frame, when I was at the point where I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't call my mother. I didn't call my father. I didn't call my friends. I didn't tell my friends. I called you. And I mean, that's from me to you, says a lot of what a coach can do. And long story short, we show up there, we get all the details out of the way and everything. And you ended up going to the hospital with me. And even a D1, D2, D3 program, you have 100 other kids to worry about and a family. And so from me to you, I appreciate that more than you'll ever know. It got me to be a father, a coach, a husband, a business owner, from that focal point. And really being able to bounce back. My first game back was the Dakota Bowl, which was a blast. Anytime you get a beat up on Dakota State, especially in the Fargo Dome, is fun. But I want you to, and I think you know this, and so I don't want to be a preacher to you, but the impact that a coach has is outrageous. Because without that point, I don't think I'd be a father. I really don't. I could have definitely died. And so I appreciate that more than you know. I think you know that, but it was probably one of the biggest focal points in my life. So
no, I appreciate that. And
yeah.
And I remember that very day. I remember you calling me, and I was home for lunch, and I just remember dropping everything and and heading up to see you, and then eventually talking with your parents and going up to the hospital. And it's like, we got to get this plan figured out, and I remember that day, and that's what we're here for. And is that part of it, and that's not an easy thing, And I think it just goes to show, and you know this because you're really good at it, but I think it goes to show all of us, you just never know what people are battling. I had no idea with you that was going on. I would have absolutely had no idea on that part of it, but you owned it and stepped up and did that. And I think, just like I said, it's a good lesson for all of us. Whether it's an addiction battle or whether it's a mental battle or a family issue and things like that, sometimes you just never know, and that's why you need to be there for people. And it's also why we kind of do this coaching and thing as well as my greatest. Well, we have graduation today, and I tell people all the time that's the coolest part of the semester. The wins over Tech and the football thing is great, but to see people graduate, and then to see what people like you are doing in their lives, and so many others that are doing, that's our greatest joy of the coaching. And then you just to see the success that the former players have in their careers with their families, as you mentioned, fathers and husbands, and that's the cool part of this whole thing.
It really is, and it's a vast pool. That ripple effect has been large. I mean, it blows my mind every time that I think Quincy and Jesse would stay here, being from Hawaii. It's this big community and this culture that has started as this focal point of DSU, and it's been really cool. One last thing that I usually end with, and I think this is a really good question for you, and I'm very interested to hear this answer. But when it's all said and done, whether it's after football or when everything's said and done, what does Coach Stanton want to be remembered for?
That's a really good question. I think somebody that cared about the players that he coached, that I think somebody that made an impact, tried to set an example with trying to do the right things, and try to hopefully showed people, the way to treat people, that all people need to be treated well, that everybody has a different background and everybody has a different purpose, and everybody, I think I talked about this already, everybody has a different path in life, and to have tolerance for people. I think if you can look at it and say Coach Stanton was very tolerant and accepting of everyone and anyone that came across. I think that would be a cool thing, because I think that's what it's all about. Everybody, whether they're young, old, wherever, they deserve the respect, and they all have different ways of getting there and different paths of getting there. And I think about when, I had a brother that passed away, and you saw afterwards the impact, the things that people said. It wasn't about, he was a great coach and we won a lot of games. It was about the life was impacted, that the life was changed. And I think that's that's the legacy, and I think that's the legacy that any coach would strive for, not caring about how many football games you won or conference championships you won, but that you had a great relationship with the players and colleagues that you were around, and that you hopefully made an impact and difference on people.
Yeah, and I think I think you have already really solidified that. Looking from the outside in, this is somebody having been coached by, and then being able to be hired by you as a strength coach and stuff. You've really lived that. And when your brother passed away, it was when I was playing as well, and that impact that the community wrapped around you, the whole Stevenson family. It was really cool to see, and that was because of his legacy. Everybody knew the person that he was, and they exemplified who he was with the support for all you guys. So it was really a sight to see, and I appreciate your time more than you know, and I thank you for everything that you've done and everything that you're going to do. It's been a pleasure, and I think this has been one of my favorite episodes for a long time. And we've had a ton of different people on, and this conglomeration of people, but I've been waiting for this one for a long time, and so I appreciate it more than you know, and I'm looking forward to following along, and any help you need or anything, I'm always here, because I owe my life to you. So
appreciate you having me, and keep doing great things.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is episode 119. Keep up with the Bluehawks, and we will see you guys next week.